lectures in between. Today's lecture will be mainly focused on deep neck space infection. Fine, fine. Today's lecture will mainly be focused on deep neck space infection. Before this, we have taken three lectures. One was about the anatomy of pharynx. Second was we had two lectures on the anatomy and understanding of pharynx, and the third lecture was about tonsils. Uh, as a routine, as a routine along with this lecture, we also discuss few MCQs. In fact, all the MCQs that has been asked in NEET exam from this topic. Quite a few interns and some students from other colleges also join this, which is always welcome, no harm in that. Again, I repeat, at the end of this class, I will be circulating a Google form for attendance for Bharti College only. Uh, those from other colleges, they can keep the roll number space vacant. Okay, so now, first of all, let us understand today's topic, that is deep neck space infection. To understand this topic of deep neck space infection, we need to understand what is this deep neck space. So, as the term logically means, there are some spaces in the neck. So, to understand the spaces in neck, let us do a neck dissection. So, when we cut the neck, first layer that we get is the skin. Once we cut the skin, we get a layer of superficial fascia. So, first MCQ. The superficial fascia in the neck is same as platysma muscle. So platysma muscle is same as the superficial fascia of the neck. Keep noting down the MCQs that we have been that we'll discuss. So there are a lot of time questions have been asked that does neck have a superficial fascia? To understand, or is platysma a separate muscle than superficial fascia? To understand, platysma is same as the superficial fascia in the neck. Now, as we go deeper, there is a deep fascia. The deep fascia in the neck gets divided into three parts: the outer, the middle, and the inner. The deep fascia of the neck gets divided into three parts, that is the outer, the middle, and the deeper layer. So till now we understood there is superficial layer, which is same as platysma. The deeper layer has got three parts, that is the outer layer, the middle layer, and the deeper layer. The outermost layer, understand, the outermost layer of the deep fascia is called as the investing layer of the deep fascia. It is also called as a cervical fascia. So it is the outermost layer of the deep fascia is called as the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Again, second MCQ. The investing layer of deep cervical fascia encloses two muscles and two glands. The investing layer of deep cervical fascia encloses two muscles and two glands. Anybody wants to name the muscles and glands? Anyone? Which two muscles and which two glands are enclosed by the deep cervical fascia? Thyroid gland, yes. Navya, any other gland? Okay, the thyroid gland is not correct. Thyroid gland is wrong. Muscles, Anirudh is saying trapezius and deltoid. Deltoid, no. Deltoid is an arm muscle. Trapezius, yes. We want two muscles and two glands enclosed by the investing or the outermost layer of deep cervical fascia. Anybody wants to answer quickly? Yes, Tashu and Archita. Tashu says submandibular gland and parotid gland. Yes, so submandibular gland and the parotid glands are the two glands. Somebody had, Navya had told thyroid. Remember, thyroid is a deeper gland, so it will be the other fascia, not the first layer. So the first layer or the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia, it traverses upwards, it goes around the submandibular gland and the parotid gland. And the two muscles, one of Anirudh rightly said trapezius. Yes, Harshita, it is sternocleidomastoid. So sternocleidomastoid and the trapezius muscles are the two muscles which are enclosed in the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So we understood two MCQs. First MCQ was that platysma is same as the superficial layer of the neck, and deeper layer have got three parts: outermost, middle, and the inner. The outermost part is called the investing layer, where the rule of two is present, where two muscles and two glands are around that. Now we come to the second layer. So we are discussing deep cervical fascia. The outermost layer was called as the investing layer. The second layer, it is called as the visceral layer. The second layer is called as the visceral layer because it encloses around the viscera, that is the trachea and the esophagus. The second layer is the visceral layer, which goes around the trachea and the esophagus. The first layer was the investing layer of the cervical fascia. The second layer is the visceral layer. Not very important. Third layer is important because third layer forms the prevertebral fascia. It is around the vertebral column, it is anterior to vertebral column, and it is called as the prevertebral fascia. So three layers. Outermost layer is the investing layer. Second layer is the visceral layer. Visceral layer goes around the esophagus, goes around the trachea, goes around the thyroid gland, goes around the strap muscles, and the deeper or the third layer is the prevertebral fascia. So we have got three layers. So if somebody asks you a MCQ where they say that which layer forms the pretracheal fascia, investing layer, middle layer, deeper layer, or the superficial layer, what should the answer be? Which layer of deep cervical fascia forms the pretracheal fascia? Is it the investing layer, the middle or the visceral layer, the deeper layer, or the superficial fascia? Anybody wants to answer? Yes, it is Tanya. It's the middle layer or the visceral layer. Vaishnavi, not the investing layer. Investing layer is a very superficial layer. It just yes, I got answer. Swapnil, right, Ashita, right. So the investing layer is just a superficial layer around the muscles and the gland. The moment anything is deep, it will be the middle layer, also called as the visceral layer. So fascia around the thyroid, fascia around the esophagus, fascia around the trachea, pretracheal fascia, thyroid fascia, all these are formed by the visceral layer of deep cervical fascia. One or two points about the deeper layer. That is, the deeper layer, as I told you, is in front of the vertebral column, and so it is the prevertebral fascia. In front of the prevertebral fascia, I repeat again, in front of the prevertebral fascia is another layer which is called as the alar layer. Alar layer, A-L-A-R, is the alar layer. So the deep fascia form the prevertebral fascia and the alar fascia. So deep fascia forms two, and the third layer of the deep fascia forms two important fascias. One is the prevertebral and the alar layer. Okay, that is all that we need to understand about the anatomy. So we revise what we understood. Deep, the fascias in the neck is divided in two parts: the superficial fascia and the deep fascia. First MCQ was that superficial fascia forms the platysma. The second, that is the deep fascia, is divided into three parts. That is the investing layer, the visceral layer, and the deeper layer. The investing layer is the one which goes around the two muscles and two glands. The visceral layer is the pretracheal, around the esophagus, around the strap muscles, and the deeper layer forms two important fascia. That is the prevertebral fascia and the alar fascia. All may not be given in your book, some may be just because many questions in NEET have been asked from these points, so we need to understand these many points. Now, between these fascias, so first point that we understood today is about the anatomy of fascias. Second point, we are trying to understand deep neck space infections. So between these fascias, there are some potential spaces, and when these spaces get infected or there is collection of pus there is there and this is called as a deep neck space infection, and it is one of the ENT emergencies because around this area is presence of great vessels, there is airway. So because there are great vessels and airway, whenever there is infection in this area, there is chance of it can become very fatal and even patient can lose life. So first point we understood today is the fascias of the neck. Second point we understood is deep neck space infection is infection of the potential spaces between these fascias. Okay, some of you have joined late. I'll just tell you that after this class, I'll put a Google form which you have to answer in which you have to answer the question based on which will take your attendance, and it will remain open only for 10 minutes. Okay, so also the MCQ that we understood was one was about the platysma. I keep revising these points because I generally don't prefer to use the PowerPoint. So superficial fascia. Second is okay. Looks like some connection problem. Okay, I'm back. So first was the platysma, the superficial fascia. Second was first layer of the deep fascia is around two muscles and two glands. Third point was the visceral layer is around thyroid gland, around trachea, around esophagus. Fourth point was the deeper layer forms the prevertebral fascia and the alar fascia. So four important MCQs we have discussed till now. Next point. In generally, most common deep neck space, there are many deep neck space infections, but four deep neck space infections are important for us to understand. One is to give answers in the exam, and second, because these four are very common, we need to be more aware about these topics. So these four are: one is peritonsillar abscess, that is quinsy; second is parapharyngeal abscess; third is retropharyngeal abscess, and fourth is Ludwig's angina. So four deep space infections we'll be discussing over two classes. Today we will just discuss about the parapharyngeal abscess and quinsy because they are very much related, they are very much same. It will be a very short class, not very long class. So just try to understand this topic, grasp this topic, and see to it that you are able to solve all the MCQs that are asked from this topic in your NEET exams and plus any other exams. Okay, so yeah, in anatomy, I just forgot one important point because many, at least 3 or 4 times, this MCQ has been asked. In the neck, there is carotid artery, there is internal jugular vein, there is vagus nerve. Carotid artery, internal jugular vein, vagus nerve, they all are surrounded by a fascia or a sheath. This sheath is called as, anybody wants to answer? Which sheath is present around the carotid artery, the jugular vein, and the vagus nerve? Yes, Shaurya, right. It is Shaurya Muskan, right. It's the carotid sheath, But that is not the MCQ which is asked because all of you know that it is carotid sheath. The MCQ that is commonly asked is, yes, all of you answering it right, correct. It is an easy question. That is not the MCQ which is commonly asked. The commonly asked MCQ is two questions have been asked from this area. One, what or which fascia forms the carotid sheath? Which fascia forms the carotid sheath? Anybody wants to answer? Which fascia forms the carotid sheath? Okay, so I'll tell you. The anybody is answering? No. So the carotid sheath is formed by prevertebral. Himani, no. Shaurya, yes. All meaning which all? All, yeah, Shaurya is right. All, but which all? What do you mean by all fascia? Okay, so understand. Carotid sheath is formed by fibers of all three. Yes, yes, right. Yeah. So carotid, yes, Suraj, you are right. So carotid sheath is formed by all the three layers. That is the prevertebral, investing, and pretracheal. No, see, yeah, pretracheal. Shaurya is saying pretracheal also. Pretracheal is same as the visceral layer. Okay, so saying pretracheal only may not be correct. Ideally, it is the prevertebral fascia or the investing layer, the visceral layer, and the deep layer. All three layers of the deep cervical fascia, they together form the carotid sheath. I repeat, the investing layer, the visceral layer, and the deep layer. But when you are writing MCQ, see to it what is given. If they mention pretracheal, yes, pretracheal is definitely part of visceral layer. If they mention prevertebral, yes, prevertebral is the part of the deeper layer. So all these three fascia, they together form the carotid sheath. So we tackled one MCQ. The second MCQ is in between the carotid sheath and the great vessels is a potential space. In between the carotid sheath and the great vessels is a potential space. This space extends from where the carotid is, from where the jugular is starting, that is from the skull base. This space extends from skull base and goes down up to the mediastinum. Potential space in the carotid sheath, which starts from the base of skull and goes up to mediastinum. Importance is infection from skull base, infection from the neck can travel through this, directly can go into the mediastinum. So this is a highway for spread of infection. This is a highway for spread of neck infection. From skull base, it can directly reach up to the mediastinum. Now the question, what is the name of this highway? What is the name of this highway? Danger space? No. Danger space, nahi. Anything else? Don't use Google. Try to use your basic knowledge. If you're wrong, it's all right. Danger space is something else. We'll discuss that. Danger space? No. It is not danger space. It is a space which extends from skull base along the carotid sheath and goes up to mediastinum. And this space is a highway. And this highway is no. Retropharyngeal is totally different. Now we are no. So it is. Yes. Dr. P. August. Lincoln's Highway. You're right. So this is the Lincoln's Highway. Dr. P. Augusta, sorry, yeah. So it is called as the Lincoln's Highway. This highway is important because infection from neck, from the base of skull, along the sheath can directly reach up to mediastinum. So two MCQs from carotid sheath. One is carotid sheath is formed by fibers of all the three layers, and second is that the fiber that this highway or this space is called as Lincoln's Highway. Okay, that is all about the anatomy of deep neck space. Now we come to the two neck space infections that we will be discussing. One is quinsy, second is parapharyngeal abscess. Okay, so when you are writing, it is Lincoln's Highway, yes, Aishwarya. Okay, so when we are writing a question on quinsy, when we are writing a question on parapharyngeal abscess, or for that matter, because the deep neck space infections are a long question or they can be a short note, to understand that most of the symptoms of all these four deep neck space infections are same. Most of the symptoms of all these four deep neck space infections, that is the quinsy, that is also called as peritonsillar abscess, parapharyngeal abscess, Ludwig's angina, and retropharyngeal abscess. So all these majority of symptoms of all these four deep neck space infections are same, but so writing a long question becomes easy, but there are some subtle differences between all of them, and that is why it becomes important, or it is a very favorite of the MCQ makers or the exam makers who make MCQs to make minimum changes in the symptoms and try to ask you the diagnosis. So when you read a question, read each symptom very carefully so that you reach to a proper diagnosis. I repeat, symptoms are more or less same, but there are very few subtle differences that we will discuss. So now first is quinsy. Quinsy is peritonsillar abscess. Remember, quinsy is peritonsillar abscess. That is, it is just outside the tonsil, but it is medial to the outermost layer. So which muscle is present on the lateral part of tonsil? Anybody wants to answer? Which muscle is present on the lateral part of tonsil? So if I keep dissecting tonsil, which muscle will we reach? Superior constrictor. Swapnil, you are right. Yes, Yashwardhan, you are right. So it is the superior constrictor muscle. So just lateral to the upper pole of tonsil when there is collection. Yes, Sachita Prajesh, right. So just lateral to the upper pole of tonsil on the side when there is collection of pus, it is called as peritonsillar abscess. The most common cause for peritonsillar abscess is recurrent tonsillitis. The most common cause for peritonsillar abscess is recurrent tonsillitis. One important point. Recent literatures, recent literatures, it is important because in questions they ask you. Recent literatures have said that tonsillitis may not be a cause of peritonsillar abscess. I repeat, for majority of books still mention that recurrent tonsillitis is the most important cause of quinsy. However, some new literature have mentioned that it is not the tonsillitis, but there is a gland present in the peritonsillar space which is called as the Weber gland. There is a gland present in the peritonsillar space which is called as Weber's gland, and it is infection of this Weber gland which leads to peritonsillar abscess. So might be in future MCQs these questions will start coming in about Weber's gland. But as of now, most important cause for quinsy is recurrent tonsillitis, and infection from tonsil. It goes into peritonsillar space, there is collection of pus, and patient starts having symptoms. Symptoms we'll discuss. Now, whenever there is infection in tonsil, we have discussed features of acute tonsillitis. Acute tonsillitis patient has severe sore throat, patient has high grade fever, patient has difficulty in swallowing. These three are, and patient might have tender nodes. So these three, that is fever, sore throat, and difficulty in swallowing, are the important features of acute tonsillitis. In quinsy, it is different, but fever, sore throat, and odynophagia will remain. In quinsy, fever, sore throat, odynophagia will be there. Along with this, along with this, there will be there is slight interference. Okay, let us. I'll again repeat what I said. Here appears to be all right. Yeah. So acute tonsillitis has fever, odynophagia, and sore throat. Quinsy also has all these three features, but along with these features, the patient will have trismus. He will not be able to open his mouth. Patient will have trismus, very important. Patient is not able to swallow saliva. So there is drooling of saliva outside. So there is trismus, and there is drooling of saliva from the mouth. And thirdly, when the patient talks, this voice is typically called as a hot potato voice. When the patient talks, this kind of voice is typically called as hot potato voice. For all of you, the moment you read the term hot potato voice in the question, it has to be the examiner wants you to go towards quinsy. But if there is trismus, drooling of saliva, and features of tonsillitis, do think in terms of trismus, in terms of quinsy. Acute tonsillitis will never have trismus. Acute tonsillitis will never have hot potato voice. Acute tonsillitis will never have drooling of saliva. It will just have fever, odynophagia, and sore throat. This is one important feature by which we differentiate acute tonsillitis from quinsy. Now, second point, when we examine this patient, we tell the patient, plummy voice, well, it is the hot potato voice, yeah. So, when we open the mouth of the patient, first of all, he will have difficulty in mouth opening because he has trismus because of the pain. But with some difficulty, if we open the mouth of the patient, again, a differentiating feature of acute tonsillitis and quinsy. In acute tonsillitis, both the tonsils are enlarged, both the tonsils are congested. There might be follicles, there might be membranes which may not be there, but both tonsils, when enlarged and congested, is seen in acute tonsillitis. In quinsy, it is always, always, always unilateral. Remember, quinsy is always unilateral. Acute tonsillitis is always bilateral. So when you see both tonsils enlarged, when you see both tonsils congested, think in terms of acute tonsillitis. But when you see only one side tonsil enlarged for more than the enlargement of tonsil, what you see is a bulge in the soft palate area. So there is tonsil, just above the tonsil is the soft palate. So when you see a bulge in the soft palate area, it is typical of quinsy. When the bulge increases too much, it pushes the uvula on the opposite side. So when we examine the patient of quinsy, we will see that there's a bulge in the soft palate and the uvula is pushed on the opposite side. This is an important feature of differentiating acute tonsillitis from quinsy. So whenever appearing for NEET exam, whenever seeing the questions, see to it. What has the examiner mentioned in examination? Now, most of the times, most of the questions are clinical questions. So there can be a question that a 10-year-old child presented with sore throat, difficulty in swallowing, fever. He had trismus, drooling of saliva. On examination, there was bulge in soft palate. The moment you see a bulge in soft palate and the features, think in terms of quinsy. Okay, fine. So we have examined this patient. We have seen this. Important point. Acute tonsillitis is more commonly seen in children. Acute tonsillitis is more commonly seen in children. Quinsy is more commonly seen in adults, that is more than 15-16 years age group. Acute tonsillitis will be seen more commonly in children, but quinsy is not commonly seen in children. Quinsy is seen more in adults or more seen in adolescent and adults and not much seen in children. This is also an important point because once it has been asked that all are true about quinsy except. So quinsy is not commonly seen in children, more commonly seen in adolescent and adults. Okay, so we are discussing about quinsy. We discussed about the clinical features. We discussed about on examination what do we find. Then karna kya, what to do with this patient. This patient has come to us. He's having severe sore throat. He's having fever. He's having gordinophagia. He's not able to swallow. He's having drooling of saliva. What do we do? So once we have confirmed the diagnosis, understand, for quinsy, the diagnosis is by clinical examination and we don't require any sonography, we don't require any CT scan. For quinsy, the diagnosis is mainly a clinical diagnosis. We don't require any investigation. Treatment. For treatment, we just do a basic CBC, a basic hemogram to know how much are WBC, what is the state of infection. We also rule out any immunocompromised condition of the patient, rule out diabetes, rule out HIV, any condition which can aggravate infections. And then now we have to treat the patient. To treat first is admit the patient. All deep neck space infection patients should be admitted. They should be given IV fluids. They should be well hydrated. They should be given a broad spectrum antibiotic. The commonest antibiotic we give is amoxiclav in proper dose. Along with that, we give patient analgesics. And when we see a bulge, we need to drain. All deep neck space infections need to be drained. Understand? All deep neck space infections, the treatment is IV antibiotics and incision and drainage. The site for incision and drainage is important. The site for incision and drainage in quinsy is important. This site is, you open the mouth, you see the anterior pillar, you see the anterior pillar, you see the base of uvula. So base of uvula and the anterior pillar. The base of uvula and the anterior pillar. And where these 2 points join. No, Vaishnavi, tonsillectomy is not the treatment for quinsy. Remember, it is first we have to drain. Yeah, about bacterial culture, Ashita, I'll come back, I'll tell you. Can't we do a needle aspiration, Ashita? I'm coming to that. So we draw a line along the base of uvula. We draw a line along the anterior pillar, and where these two lines join, we give a nick. This nick is generally given with a 11 number blade. A commonly asked question in NEET, which blade is commonly used? The commonly used blade is the 11 number blade or the preferred instrument. The preferred instrument is the, write the name, preferred instrument is a St. Clair Thompson-Quincy forceps. That is the most preferred instrument. If that is in the option, go for the St. Clair Thompson-Quincy forceps. If that is not in the option, we have to use 11 number blade to drain. Now, Ashita used to ask that can we do a needle aspiration? We can do that. Whenever there is a doubt whether the patient has pus or does not have a pus, we can aspirate with the needle at the same point, and if pus comes out, then we can drain it. But a lot of time in Quincy, we see a proper bulge and drainage remains the treatment of choice. So that was about Quincy. So parapharyngeal space abscess we will continue in the next class. Some problem with connection. Okay, so parapharyngeal space questions we will, parapharyngeal space abscess we will carry in the next class. I think 37-40 minutes are enough for a lecture. So today we covered things about deep neck space infection, and we also understood about Quincy. Lots of MCQs are based around deep neck space infection, around tonsillitis, around Quincy. So go through this. You have any doubts, you can put questions here. We'll try to discuss that. I will be putting the link for the Google question in some time, right immediately. I had planned to cover parapharyngeal abscess also, so the questions in the Google form may be there for parapharyngeal abscess. You can answer, no issue, no harm. Those who are not from Bharti can just leave the roll number vacant. Okay, any questions that you think we should discuss here, or shall we end? I'll put the link for the Google questionnaire, and the Google questionnaire and the Google form will remain open only for 10 minutes. There are 10 questions. It will remain open for 10 minutes. So I'll just put the Google question. Sir, please can you explain incision again? Where do we put the Nimisha roll number? It is to be put in the Google form. The Google form has a roll number which you have to fill for the incision. Yes, somebody wants. Ashita wants to know Lincoln's Highway. Okay, so two questions. One is incision for the Quincy. So when we open the mouth, we see tonsil. In front of tonsil is the anterior pillar. So we take the anterior pillar as one landmark, and we see uvula. So we take the base of uvula as the other landmark. So the line where the anterior pillar and the base of uvula join, that is the site. That is the site for incision and drainage. Lincoln's Highway. Lincoln's Highway. So carotid sheath is formed by fibers of investing, middle, and the third layer of deep cervical fascia. This space in the carotid sheath itself, is called as Lincoln's Highway. Why? Because it is a highway which can lead to infection from skull base up to the mediastinum. It can lead to infection. All of you can do a Google search for Lincoln's Highway. You will see a kind of highway which is there where there is a lot of traffic and which leads to important place. So infection can spread into mediastinum. Okay, let me see if I can paste. I'm pasting the Google link here. The time now is 14:37. So 47. So till 14:47, this link will remain open. Can you click this link from here? I'm not sure. Can you click the link from here? I think you can click. Can you click the link? I repeat, can you click the link from this questionnaire? Yes, okay. So I'm keeping this YouTube channel on for in the YouTube channel. I should. Okay, I'll close it. I think I'll close this channel. It's fine. Thank you so much. Fill up this question in next 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'll stop accepting answers. So we'll get the answers here, and we'll also get the attendance. Any questions, you can always put in the comment section. This will be there in the YouTube in this channel for some time. So all those who have not attended can also attend and can yes. I'd like to hear your comments. I'd also like to see any doubts which you have. It'll be a pleasure to answer all those. Thank you so much. Have a good day.